Prahaladyan, PGD English from MVS Center of Excellence, Bangalore. Today we are going to deal with a very fundamental, very basic element of language. That's parts of speech. Parts and speech. See, speech is something to express our thoughts, express our ideas, express whatever that we want. That's a speech. And here, language comes, the most important thing. Language refers to a means of communication. Language refers to means of communication. And speech, it is an expression of ideas and thoughts and all those things. Just articulate vocal sounds. Now, speech in different languages we call, different contexts we call different terms or use different terms. Like we say speech, we say oration, sometimes we say address, and all these things are used only for the purpose of communicating to the audience. Now question, what are these parts of speech? What are these parts of speech? Now see, we have to understand one thing, particularly when it comes to English language. English language is so easy, so simple, above and all so flexible, so flexible. See, a word's meaning is derived, not only through its pronunciation, its spelling. Sometimes its meaning is derived through the position of the word. The best example I'll show you here. How the position of a particular word changes its meaning. For example, I ate fish for my dinner. I ate fish for my dinner. Wonderful. I ate fish. Ate what? Ate fish. That's a noun. Fish is noun. See here. We fish every Tuesday, or shall we go on Sunday? Okay. We fish every Sunday in the pond. Okay. See, here also fish, here also fish. Spelling is same, pronunciation is same. But because of the position you see, I ate fish. Here subject, this is verb, and this is object. So naturally, it's a noun. I ate fish. Whereas you see in the second sentence, we is a subject, fish, verb. Every Sunday in the pond. Okay. Here, FIS fish. It's placed in the verb's position. So this is verb. Here FIS fish. Here it is noun. So if you keep this flexibility in the mind, if you keep this difference in your mind, you can very easily identify the parts of speech. When we speak, how many words do we use? Thousands of words, millions of words, billions of words we use. Each word that we utter is categorized. Each word that we speak is named. Now, let us see what is speech and what are its parts. Okay, what is speech and what are its parts? That's what parts of speech. I would like to quote a beautiful quotation here. He was born deaf. He was born deaf without power of speech. He is born deaf without power of speech. Now let us straight away get into with relation to this. A part of speech is one of the 9 types in English words. See, a part of speech is one of the 9 types of English words. Shall we list it out? Okay, noun, okay, pronoun, verb, okay, adjective, adverb. Then you see here, before going to this, we have determiners also. Determiners also we have. See, I said 9. But if you open your books and see now, you come across only 8. So these determiners were also parts of speech once. But now that has been added to adjectives. So now for our convenience for the line being, we'll remove these determiners. So adverb we have, then we have preposition, okay, then we have conjunction, then we have interjections. Okay. Now you see here, we have 8 parts of speech. First one noun, second one pronoun, third verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, conjunction, and interjection. Now, do you need to arrange these things only in this order? Need not necessarily be. Because each part in our speech is equally important. Either you can just arrange these things in alphabetical order or whatever the convenient way. But somehow, traditionally, it has been arranged like this: noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, adjective, and all those things. Neither we find any relation one-to-one, nor they are totally different. So it is our convenience. So to begin with, we'll go for the traditional thing. Only we'll follow for some time. Noun. Yes, all of you know. I think there is no one around here who do not know noun. What noun is? Noun is a naming word. Shall we make it very simple? Noun is a naming word. Like how we say, verb is a working word. Noun is a naming word. That's fine. So, to define, there's nothing like a definition or something like this. For our own understanding, we say, noun is a word that names a person, that names a place, that names a thing, that names ideas, many things like this. So person, place, thing, ideas, anything that names. For example, I have an object in my hand. This I have called it as a pen, or this I have called it as a marker, or this I have called it as a permanent marker or temporary marker. So we have named it. So a word that names a place, a person, or a thing, or an idea, that's called a noun. Now, do we have any types of nouns here exactly? Yes. Now, we will see. We have common noun, okay, proper noun, okay, then we have a compound noun, then collective noun, then abstract noun. So likewise, we have different kinds of nouns here. Common noun, proper noun, compound noun, collective noun, abstract noun. Likewise, we have so many things. Now, shall we go one by one? Yes, we'll take common noun to begin with. What is common noun? Common nouns are names in general. They are not specific. Names in general. Names in general of places, things, or ideas. For example, I say boy. Boy, anybody who is male and young is called boy. Anybody who is female and young, we call it as a girl. Or, for example, simply I say city. Which city I am not saying, whether it's a Bangalore or Bombay, Delhi, no. I am not specifying. I am simply generalizing. Boy, I am not specifying. Girl, I am not specifying. Or city, I am not specifying. Or, for example, simply I say religion. Okay. Or simply I say something like freedom. So here, what sort of freedom? Whether freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, I am not specifying. Whether which boy, which girl, which city, I am not specifying. So, like these are the things they tell us about common. This is what we call it as common noun. So names which are general in nature, or people, places, things, or ideas, they are called common nouns. Now, let us go to proper noun. They are very nearer. Proper noun names specific people, specific places, specific things. For example, I write Jalpita. I write Samhita. I write Narendra Modi. Okay. So this is a specific name given to a particular girl. This is specific name given to a particular girl. This is the name of our Prime Minister. So, proper names are names of specific people, things, or ideas. For example, say here, fruit. Okay, fruit is a common term. It's a common noun. Whereas in fruit, I say mango. Mango is a specific name for a particular fruit. That's why fruit is a common noun. Mango is a proper noun. For example, I say city. City is a common noun. We are not specifying anything. Now I take Delhi. I take Bangalore. Okay. Delhi is a city. Bangalore is also a city. But when we simply say city, this is common now. Whereas Delhi and Bangalore is specific. So that's a proper noun. Now let us quickly go to other nouns. Okay. Now, another important abstract noun. It's not so abstract to understand. To understand it is very simple. See, abstract noun is a noun, something that you cannot perceive with your five senses. For example, I say happiness. Okay. Why you cannot perceive? You can feel. See, you do not know the color of the happiness. You do not know the size of the happiness, the smell of the happiness, nothing. So, another love. All of us feel the love of mother, love of father, love of sister, brother, everybody, love of teacher. But our senses, the five senses cannot perceive. For example, another word also we take, religion. Many of us follow many religions. But do we know what is the size, what is the shape, what is the color of all those things? No. So, abstract nouns name something that you cannot perceive with your senses. That is abstract noun. Now, let us quickly go to concrete noun. Concrete noun.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, one question is coming from a learner.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please.
He is Mr. Mohan from UP. He is saying, but the religion can be identified by seeing. So how it is abstract noun?
There are religious symbols.
Yes.
You can identify religious symbols. For example, Muslims have green flag. With that we understand. Hindus project saffron flag. That we project. But we feel it. But that's the color we have given. Otherwise, religion has no shape, no color, nothing. It's only a feeling. Now we'll go to concrete noun. See, concrete nouns are the nouns which we can perceive, which we can feel, which we can touch. For example, chocolate. Immediately you can start feeling it. How tasty it is, how relishing it is, how big it is, what chocolate you are eating, everything. For example, I say lion. Yes, how scary it is, how big it is, how small it is, whether it's a cub, whether it's a mother lion, whether father lion, all those things we can understand. Like for example, flower. So here flower I can say rose flower, jasmine flower, chrysanthemum, whatever the flowers. So here all we can feel, we can touch, we can understand the sight, smell and everything. So these are concrete nouns. Now let us quickly go to the next one. Now here nouns have been further divided into nouns of divided into
Excuse me, sir.
countable nouns.
Excuse me, sir.
We have. Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Sir, one more question is coming.
Yes,
Just
sir.
now
Please.
you said ki rose is a concrete noun.
Okay.
But the learner is asking ki rose can be a proper noun also because rose
Yes,
is there.
it is also. It is also proper noun. It is also proper noun. So just to concretize, a name given to a particular flower, a name given to a particular flower is a proper noun. But when it comes to abstract and concrete, all the proper nouns, like a common nouns also, like a table, chair, computer. Like if you take a computer, you have laptop you have tabletop you have palm top you have. We have specified further again, based on the sizes and shapes. So here, when I say it's a concrete noun, nouns that can be touched, that can be felt, whose size, shape, colors can be seen. Now, countable and uncountables are also nouns. These are very simple. Like for example, countable nouns that you can count it. I have a pen. I have a car. She has got 5 pen pouches. She has got 10 notebooks. So where you can count, he has got 1,000 shirts. He has got 10 million. So all these things here, you can count it very clearly. Now you see, when it comes to, like here, countable nouns are like books, pens, wall, all these things are, anything is countable now here. Now uncountable nouns are those things that cannot be counted. Those things that cannot be counted. For example, oil. Now I think you may have a doubt. Can we count? Yes, in terms of liters. in terms of kgs. But as such, a bowl of oil is given and you are asked to count. Count in terms of what? So oil cannot be counted, water cannot be counted. For example, food cannot be counted. Rain cannot be counted. Why all those things? A bag of rice or even a kg of rice is given to us. 1 kg is a very small amount. It cannot be counted. For example, see, 1 kg of jaggery, which you all like it, can be easily counted. You may get 5 or 6 pieces, sometimes even 1 block you may get. But the same 1 kg of rice, it's a computer, a robot can count, but humanly it is not possible to count. So all these things like oil, food, rain, rice, stars, these are all uncountable nouns. Now let us go to next issue quickly. Now we have compound noun. Compound noun. What do you mean by compound noun? Compound nouns are made up of 2 or more smaller words. Compound nouns are made up of 2 or more than 2 smaller words. For example, best example we have always is eyeglasses. Eyeglasses. Eye is a separate word, glasses is a separate word. We have brought together. So you need not have to show this difference. So eyeglasses here is a single word. Now best thing that most of the times we use, Indo-Anglian. Indo is different, Anglian is different. Now, even New York, New and York, but we have brought together New York. So either 2 or more than 2 words are brought together and made into or coined into a single word that is called compound noun. Now we are coming another to very simple thing nearer to compound noun, but we call it as collective noun. What do you mean by collective noun?
Sir, one more question is coming, sir.
Yes, sir, please, sir.
Sir, in the compound noun, what do you advise? We should make a dash in between 2 words, hyphen?
Preferably, hyphen is not necessary. Hyphen is not necessary. But somehow, only in some particular areas, people add hyphen like something like welcome, well and come. No. That's not advisable. That's not advisable. When we have a compound noun, hyphen is not necessary, but it so happens, but these days somehow it is accepted. So if you use hyphen, it's not a very gross error. But if you do not use, that is better.
Sir, one more question is there, sir.
Yes, sir, please.
Key semi-glass and the bus stand.
Sir, excuse me, once again, sir.
Semi-glass and bus stand.
Sir, it's not clear.
Sir, question is that each semi-glass and the bus stands are the compound nouns?
Yes. Bus and stand. Bus and stand. It's a compound word, that is a compound word. Like a semi-class, sleeper class, that is also a compound word. Yes, now we'll go for collective noun. Collective noun here, where not necessarily be 2 or 3. Either 2 or 3 or even large number. Together, they are called as collective nouns. For example, simply group we say. Okay, group means what? A group of 2 people, group of 3 people, group of 5 people, group of 10,000 people. Like a flock. Flock of sheep. In a flock, it can be 2, 10,000, 10,000 it can be. Best thing now we have is family. Family is a collective noun. In my family, there are only 4 people. In his family, there are only 3 people. In his family, there are 100 people. But still we call it as a family. Of course, to add an adjective, big family, small family, large family, we say. But family is a family. Contains father, mother, at least one son or daughter. So it's, and what about this word? Audience. Audience. Even if 2 people are sitting and watching a drama or a movie at home or in a theater, they are also audience. If 1,000 people are sitting and watching, they are also called audience. So, group, flock, family, audience. If best thing is bunch. Bunch of flowers, bunch of grapes, bunch of keys. Even if you have 2 keys, even if you have 2 flowers, it can be called as bunch. Even if you have 100 flowers and bound together, that can be called as bunch. So these things are collective nouns. So you should not confuse with. Compound nouns are 2 words brought together and conjoined and made as one word. Whereas collective nouns, there are no 2 words, but group of things are brought together. Group of things are brought together and bunched in. That's why it is called as collective noun. Now, a singular and plurals. This is a very simple thing.
Sir.
Yes, sir, please.
Sir, one question is coming.
Yes, sir.
N. Shreyas from JNV Mysore.
Okay.
And the question is, please give clarification. What is the difference between concrete noun and a common noun?
Okay, okay. Concrete noun and common noun. See, for a group, for a genus, name that is given is common noun. For example, animal. For example, books. These are common nouns. The common nouns contextually can become concrete nouns also. Common nouns can also become concrete noun also. See, this is for the convenience of dividing, like abstract and concrete. Since we have abstract, we are just giving concrete also. Otherwise, concrete and common, not much difference. Why we have named it as just to distinguish, differentiate, or to add one more category like things which are abstract, we have given common. Now, when it comes to singular and plural.
Sir, one more question is coming. Jyoti.
Yes, sir, please.
Jyoti from Madhya Pradesh, she is asking, sir, is beard an example of collective noun or a compound noun?
Oh, wonderful question. Beard is a collective noun. Beard is a collective noun. It is a set of hairs. Let's see, we say hair. On my head, what hair I have? It is, that's what we discussed. Countable or uncountable like that. It is uncountable now. But it's not single hair. It's not a single hair. Beard is made of a bunch or 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 hairs. So it's a collective now. But not compound now. It's only like a French beard when I say. What I have is French beard. So French and beard, that's a compound noun. Whereas simply when I say beard, it's a collective noun. Now when it comes to singular and plural, like I don't think I need to explain. Even LKG child can easily. Where you have one thing, like for example, cat, shape, pencil. So always one. This refers to one person, one place, or one thing, or one idea. This is called singular. And plural is, it refers to more than one. It can be 2 or it can be 2 million. These are called plural, like persons, places, things, or ideas. Instead of saying number, just we'll say plurals. So now we'll go to possessive noun quickly, so that we can complete.
Sir, one
Yes,
more
sir,
question.
please.
One more question is there. See, Sarita from Bihar, she is asking, as sir said, there are 8 parts of his speech.
Yes,
So all the sentence would have all these 8 parts?
yes, not necessarily. It is a speech. How lengthy my speech is, or how short my sentence is. For example, I speak. Hi, how are you? I spoke. Hi, how are you, man? Where did you come from? Have you had your lunch? I spoke so much. So in that case, a speech always need not necessarily contain all the 8 parts of speech. It depends upon the length of speech. It depends upon the context on which you are speaking. If you are speaking on such a topic, of course, all the 8 parts of speech might be there. If you are speaking of a very short topic, like sometimes abstract nouns may not come at all. Sometimes adjectives may not be there at all. But one thing is there, whatever we speak, somehow verb would be there. That will come to that. So possessive nouns we say. Possessive nouns. This itself is more than sufficient to say. Possessive. Possessing something. Having a ownership. Having a ownership. For example, this is dad's car. This is dad's car. I'm using an apostrophe here. Dad's car. This is Jalpi's watch. This is Jalpi's watch. See, dad apostrophe, Jalpi apostrophe. This is Sammu's books. These are Sammu's books. Sammu is a name. What she has possessed is books. So I have used yes with apostrophe.
In the meantime, we have gone for a break also.
Okay.
Just a minute. I will give you a call.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने
अपना दीपक स्वयं बने हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त
जागे।
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने हम, अपना जीवन स्वयं बने हम, अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबकी खातिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।
शिक्षा और परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर। दुनिया में इसके केंद्र बहुत,
कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने हम, अपना जीवन स्वयं बने हम, अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने हम, स्वयं बने हम,
Welcome back once again. So that's what we were discussing. Possessive nouns. It needs an apostrophe there, like a dad's car, Jalbi's watch, Samu's books, a student's classroom, all those things. Now, singular and plural also we discussed. So anyway, for your sake, a noun that denotes one person, one thing, one idea, one place is singular, and anything more than two is plural. Now, let us go to a pronoun. Pronoun. This is very simple. A pronoun is a word. A pronoun is a word used in place of a noun. Used in place of a noun, or can we just, to avoid your confusion, instead of a noun, okay? In place of a noun or instead of a noun. Why should we use in place of a noun or instead of a noun and all those things? Because sometimes it may so happen in the conversation, that the same name, either of the place or a person or a thing, it may be repeated. So that would be monotonous. So in order to reduce that, in order to avoid the repetition, we use pronoun. For example, you see this here. Just one small example I want to give here. Pronoun gets its meaning from the noun it stands for. That noun is called antecedent. This is, of course, for junior students, you need not very seriously take this now. In course of time, you may do it. For example, you see, although Shimla is damp. Although Shimla is damp, it is my favorite place. See here, this Shimla has been shown here, or has been replaced with it. So this Shimla is used here with a pronoun. That's all. We call this as an antecedent. So quickly we'll see the types of pronouns that we have. Now, the first thing is personal pronoun. First thing is personal pronoun.
Sir, question is there, sir.
Yes, sir.
There is a difference, means common noun and the concrete noun, it is creating confusion.
Okay.
As you said, flower is a common noun and it is a
Yes.
concrete noun also. So how
Yes.
to identify the common noun and the concrete noun?
It is only through the context you have to identify. Only through the context you have to identify the common noun and concrete noun. Like when you are generalizing all flowers, you should say it is a concrete noun. When in contrast to abstract noun, if you are speaking, in the context of abstract and concrete, if you are speaking, then you should say it is whether an abstract noun or concrete noun. That's what I told you in the beginning itself for the audience. Like, I ate a fish for my lunch today. Fish is same spelling, same pronunciation, but still I ate a fish. That is a noun. Whereas other sentence I gave example, I fish every day in the pond. I fish every day in the pond. Their fish same spelling. So unless you take context clearly, you can't use or you can't name the nouns in isolation. Take this once again. Any parts of speech in isolation, just if you take a word, you can't name them properly. For example, you see here, he is swimming. He is swimming. Then you see here, swimming is good for health. Okay. In this context, you see here, unless you have a context, simply you take the swimming word, and if somebody asks you what is the parts of speech, probably the question itself would be wrong. You have to have a clear context. For example, he is swimming. Swimming is followed by an auxiliary verb. So this is a noun. Sorry, this is a verb. I am extremely sorry. This is verb. Whereas swimming, it is in the position of a subject. It's a noun. So swimming is a noun here. So whether concrete noun or abstract noun, unless you speak in a particular context, you cannot simply name them or brand them. So now we'll quickly go to personal pronouns.
Sir, one more question is coming, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is plural? Pond.
Sir, it's not audible.
Sir, pond, P-O-N-D, pond is a singular or a plural?
Pond. Pond is singular. Ponds are plural. Tank is singular. Tanks are plural. Now, when it questions whether it is a collective or it's a collective, no, because collection of water is a collection of water. So pond is a singular. Now, when it comes to personal pronouns, these personal pronouns refer to specific person or place or object or a thing. Like say, all the pronouns that we use can be classified into three categories. First person, second person, third person. Now, you see here, I, me, mine, and mine. These are first person singulars. First person singulars. And we, us, our, ours. These are first person plural. These are first person singular and first person plural. Of course, in second person, it's always very convenient for us. We need not go for second line. For example, you, yours, and your. So, in the first person, second person, singular, sorry, this is second person singular and plural, both remains the same. Now it comes to third person, like he, him, his, her, hers, it, its. So these are all third person singular. And third person plural, they, them, their, theirs. So this is a big list of personal pronouns. Personal pronouns. First person singular, first person plural, second person singular, and second person plural also remains same thing. And third person singulars we have given he, him, his, her, hers, it, its. And plural are they, them, they, and theirs. Now, possessive pronouns. Possessive pronouns. What do you mean by possessive pronouns? It is his book. That is her car. Is this beautiful plant yours? Yes, it is ours. So this is again a ownership, like how we have seen possessive cases here. This is possessive pronouns. Like this is your car. This is yours. This is yours. It is his pencil. This is hers. This is hers. It's ours. Theirs. Now, here I would like to remind you one thing. Don't confuse personal pronouns with the contractions. Contractions means which we have shortened. Personal pronouns will not have, listen once again carefully, personal pronouns will not have apostrophe. Personal pronouns will not have apostrophe. Whereas contraction like it's. Instead of writing it is, we write it's. Whereas possessive things, it's, ours, theirs. Like here also, theirs you can write THEIR, they, apostrophe S, theirs. So you should not confuse here with the personal pronouns with the contractions. What is the difference? Personal pronouns do not carry an apostrophe. Personal pronouns do not carry an apostrophe. Whereas possessive cases, contractions do have an apostrophe. Now, let us quickly get into reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns.
Sir,
The word itself clearly shows. Reflexive. Sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, one question is there.
Yes, sir.
Is the parts of the speech is divided into two parts? And if so, what are they?
Is parts of speech?
Is the parts of the speech is divided into two parts?
It's divided into 8 parts.
8 parts.
Our speech, whatever the speech or whatever the speaking that we do, the entire speech or all those words that we utter, anything in any context, have been categorized into 8 parts. That's what initially I said: noun, pronoun, adverb, adjective, preposition, a conjunction, interjection, like that. So it's not a 2, it is 8 parts. Once upon a time, we used to take It has a 9, including determiners. But now determiners have been separated from parts of speech. Now, reflexive pronouns add information to a sentence by pointing back to a noun or pronoun near the beginning of a sentence. Like reflexive pronouns, it is very easy to identify. Reflexive pronouns end with self or selves. For example, see, Samhita bought a car herself. Okay, Samhita bought a car herself, or Samhita bought herself a new car. Shall we say Samhita bought herself a new car?
Excuse me,
A new car. Sir, any question?
sir. One question is coming. He's Kshitish from Jhansi. He's
Yes, sir.
asking, is collective noun a collection of same types or different types of things?
Okay. Collective noun, for example, a bunch, we say. It may be bunch of keys or bunch of flowers. If you have varieties of flowers, maybe rose, jasmine, chrysanthemum, all together if you make it, it's called a bunch. Or 100 roses made into a bunch, yes, that's also called collective noun. For example, keys. For example, keys. Keys of an almirah, keys of your door, keys of your scooter, all those things are brought together and bunched. That's a bunch of keys. So now, Samhita bought herself a new car. So bought herself a new car. Now see here, just one sentence here. All her friends enjoyed themselves riding in the new car. Now, these two sentences you see here. Samhita bought herself a new car. Okay? All her friends enjoyed themselves riding the new car. So, this self or self, any pronoun that ends with the self or selves is a reflexive pronoun. Reflexive pronouns add information to a sentence by pointing back to a noun or pronoun near the beginning of the sentence. Normally, reflexive pronouns end in self or self. Now we'll quickly go to almost nearer to reflexive pronoun, but not a reflexive pronoun. This you should not confuse. This we call it as intensive pronouns.
Sir, one more question is there coming, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vineet from Mumbai, he is asking, is there any reason behind that determiners were removed from the parts of his speech?
So in the course of changes in the grammar, as it went on increasing its horizons, for the convenience of the people, it might have. I am extremely sorry. The history we have to study. I think if you refer to Nirukta's history of grammar, you'll be able to find. The purpose is only this much. As the horizons of grammar were widened, in order to add more and more categories, determiners were separated from adjectives. As determiners have few areas, sometimes may not work as adjectives. Okay, so now intensive pronouns also end in self or selves, but just add emphasis to the noun or pronoun. See, reflexive and intensive. To give emphasis, for example, I myself I myself will do this work. I myself will do this work. I will do this work, I should have said. That's more than enough. But I want to be emphatic. I want to lay stress that I alone will do that. I myself will do this work. She herself would drive the car. She herself would drive the car. She would drive the car is enough. To emphasize that she is not taking a driver, she is not hiring a driver. She herself would drive the car. So this reflexive pronoun and the intensive pronoun, you must be very careful. Intensive pronoun is used to emphasize, to stress upon. Whereas the reflective pronoun is just pointing back to a noun or pronoun. Now, let us quickly go to demonstrative pronouns. Demonstrative pronouns, of course, they are very easy. Demonstrative pronoun. Now, in a lab, you might have seen your teacher showing this is the beaker, add 10 milligram of sodium permanganate, add magnesium permanganate, add this, add that. Or a teacher in a primary school shows you that is a tube light. This is a laptop. This is a pen. Those are boys. These are girls. Just to demonstrate. So, demonstrative pronouns are only few, like this and plural form these, that and plural form those. So, I think we have only this, that, these, those. These are demonstrative pronouns. Now, we'll quickly go to relative pronouns.
Sir, one more question is coming, sir.
Relative pronoun. Yes, sir.
Sir, how to identify between intensive and reflexive?
Okay.
Question is from Srushti from Pune.
Okay, how to identify reflexive and intensive?
Yes.
Reflexive and intensive. Yes, sir. See, reflexive pronoun is to add information to a sentence by pointing back to a noun or pronoun. See, reflexive pronoun is to add information to a sentence by pointing back to a noun or pronoun near the beginning of a sentence. She herself, Samhita bought herself. Samhita bought herself a new car. That's at the end we are adding. Whereas in intensive, I myself, she herself, they themselves. So it will be immediately followed by the subject. Shankar himself drove the car. Teacher himself came. Principal himself. So in that case, intensive pronoun is immediately followed by a subject, but it is need not necessarily be. Now, relative pronouns.
Sir, one more question is there, sir.
Yes, sir.
He is Mr. Ashish Jha from Bihar. He is asking, air
Yes, sir.
is which type of noun? Air, A-I-R, air.
Air is which type of noun? It's normally a common noun. It's normally a common noun. Now, if you go deep into analysis, air molecules are collected, molecules of air are massed, then if you go into deeper analysis, it is a collective noun. Otherwise, it's basically a common noun. That's what here, whenever you take a word, unless you have a context, you should not try to name them. In isolation, a word cannot be. Of course, for LKG, UKG students, we say this is mango is a noun. We need not say for LKG up to second, third standard also, we need not say whether it is a proper noun or a common noun. Mango is a noun, it's a noun. But as you go higher level, you should take a context and then only you should try to name whether it's a proper noun, collective or common or something like that. So
Sir,
now,
one more question is there, sir.
yes, sir.
From Nakul, he's asking, can a idea be a demonstrative noun? Demonstrative pronoun, sorry.
What do you mean by an idea? For example, freedom is an idea. It's abstract. It cannot be, an idea cannot be a pronoun. Ideas are always nouns. See, a democracy. That's a concept, an idea. Democracy is good for India. It has helped a lot of people. So, where is the question of demonstrating comes? So, demonstration is, like idea is not exactly demonstration. Okay. Now, we are going for relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are very simple. Like, see, begin a subordinate clause. To begin a subordinate clause. This again, some confusion it leads, but without any confusion, we will go now. See, relative pronouns usually begin a subordinate clause. There are 5 relative pronouns, like that, which, who, whom, those. Now, see, this, those, and that, already demonstrative pronouns we have seen. How come here in relative pronouns also we have? Yes. When in isolation, this word that is given, and if you are asked to say whether it's a relative pronoun or demonstrative pronoun, then better you should not answer as a man of English unless you get a context. Now see here, just one sentence I'll give you. Jill claimed that she could run washing machine. Okay. Jalpita claimed is main class that she could run washing machine is a subordinate clause. So relative pronouns bring 2 clauses together. In particular, you must be specific here. Relative pronouns join the main clause and the subordinate clause. I'll give you one more example for relative pronoun so that the confusion can be clear. Ramesh is the man. Ramesh is the man who helped me in the market. Ramesh is the man who helped me in the market. Okay. Ramesh is the man is main clause. Ramesh is the man is a main clause. Who helped me in the market is subordinate clause. So this who is a relative pronoun. This who is a relative pronoun. So main clause and subordinate clauses are brought together, it relates the two clauses. That's why we call this as a relative clause. Now, we'll quickly go to interrogative pronouns. Interrogative pronouns. Now, question is, you should not confuse with interrogative and relative pronoun. The same like what, which, who, whose. So these words, see here, these are interrogative pronouns, I said. But relative pronouns, we use who is used for relative pronoun, whom is used relative pronoun, whose can be used, which can be used for relative pronouns. But interrogative pronouns also there. Like who would like to go for picnic? Who would like to go for picnic? This who used as W question. Now, which is your native place? Who are you? Whose son are you? In all these cases, where we use these words for asking a question in an interrogative sentence are interrogative pronouns. The same pronouns, if they are used, to relate one main clause and subordinate clause, they are relative pronouns. You should not confuse here. Words are same. Words are same. When word is used to ask a question, like what, which, who, whom, whose, they are interrogative pronouns. When same words are used to relate to clauses, main clause and subordinate clause, normally in subordinate clause, these words who, which, what is used. So here no confusion once again. Relative pronouns appear in subordinate clauses while connecting with main clause. Interrogative pronouns appear in the beginning of the sentence to ask a question, to frame interrogative sentence. Now, we'll go for indefinite pronouns. And wine is described by this French. For example, Indian tea. Tea is a noun, Indian proper noun. Like sometimes we say Madrasai.
Sir, we have to wind up also, sir.
Yes, sir. Madrasai we say. So here Madrasai is like a sort of infection for the eyes. But somehow we name it as Madrasai. So Madras is a proper noun. Indian is a noun. So adjectives can be formed by proper nouns. Still we have adverbs, we have prepositions, we have interjection and conjunction. Due to the rushing of questions, I don't say it's an interruption. It's a good interaction, in fact. Hope you have enjoyed the class. In the next session, probably we'll be able to take the other things. So this is Prahalad once again, PGT English from Center of Excellence.